Hi, everybody, and welcome to Circle of Fellows. This is episode number 101. We're beginning our second 100 episodes, and we're doing that with a continuation of what we presented last month in episode 100. For those of you who weren't there and haven't had a chance to watch or listen yet, rather than assemble a panel of 3 or 4 fellows for a discussion around a single topic, we solicited the entire class of fellows for their contributions, brief contributions sharing their best advice for communicators. And we ran through a bunch of those last month, but an hour was not enough time to run through all of them. So that's what we're going to do this month is present the rest of those. We're going to do that together. I'm Shel Holtz. I am Senior Director of Communications at WebCore in San Francisco, and I am joined by Brad Whitworth.
It's good to be back with you again, Shel. Brad Whitworth, who is a Senior Communications Leader at Pacific Gas and Electric. And last month, we went through 24 contributions from IABC Fellows who shared their ideas, their thoughts, their insights from decades of experience as working as communication professionals and IABC members and counsel on both sides. And for those of you who didn't watch, let me at least give you a sense of who the IABC Fellows are. Shel, me, and our 40 plus friends who joined us. Fellow is the highest honor that IABC bestows on our members. It denotes a body of achievement by a communications person who has had a significant impact not only on their own organization and IABC, but also on that communication profession at large. And in the years that we've been doing this, since 1970, just over 100 of the world's top communication leaders have earned the Fellow designation. It's considered a career achievement designation in the industry. And our fellows are globally based: Australia, Canada, India, Mexico, Philippines, South Africa, the UK, and the United States. And today, if you count both Shel and me, we'll be hearing from 20 IABC Fellows. We're going to be sharing experiences and thoughts of the roles of communication professionals and how they've changed over the years and the value of IABC throughout their journeys. So let's get started and find out a little bit about what has happened for some of the people who put this together. Shel and I are both contributors to this IABC guide for practical business communications, a global standard primer. If you have not got a copy of this, you probably ought to. It's also a great way to get ready for your GCCC exams. And the editor and contributor to that book was Tamara Gillis, education doctorate and ABC. She's named an IABC Fellow back in 2014. She's a tenured professor at Elizabethtown College in Pennsylvania, and she's preparing tomorrow's corporate communicators at the school. As an author and communications consultant, she continues to influence the practice of communications and change management. Her research interests have been recognized on regional, national, international level by the Association for Education in Journalism and Mass Communication, as well as IABC. She was the very first educator to serve as chairman of the IABC Research Foundation, has held numerous leadership roles within IABC. Now, as a communications consultant, she's worked with nonprofit advocacy organizations, government corporations, small companies, all over the board. She is a frequent speaker. She's a workshop presenter in the areas of organizational communication, change management, and employee communications. She's a strong believer in lifelong learning, and she shared some thoughts with us.
Hello. My one piece of advice is to embrace lifelong learning. No matter whether you're new to the communications profession or a seasoned professional, to be sound counsel for our clients and our employers, we need to keep up to date, not only with communication practices and trends, but also with the environment of our client and the world around us. And the only way to do that is to embrace the idea that we will always be learning. It will always be necessary. And there are so many places that you can get that education, both formally and informally, whatever suits your immediate needs or your long-term goals. So I say, embrace becoming a lifelong learner.
As some of you know, February is Ethics Month. Our IABC Code of Ethic guides our behaviors and our actions. It's essentially what we believe in. It's not that much different from a values statement in an organization. These are the things that we believe in that we need to abide by in order to behave ethically and to represent our organizations and our clients in an ethical way. Jennifer Waugh, ABC, MC, SCMP of the Fellows class of 2014 is based in North Vancouver, Canada. She's worked with clients to deliver ideas, plans, words, and results since she founded her storytelling and communication firm, Forwards Communication, Inc. in 1997. Jennifer joined us in Circle 100 speaking about the value of IABC membership, and today she's back adding a few more thoughts, this time as past chair of the Ethics Committee.
What I wanted to talk about today is something that connects to my current volunteer role with IABC, which is as past chair of the IABC Ethics Committee. Again, when we have worked side by side, when we have gotten to know each other and have appreciated each other's skills and background and diversity, again, it means we hold each other to a higher standard. And that, to me, is ethics. It's integrity. It's how we show up for each other and for our profession.
And I know that ethics is one of those topics that when you are taking the CMP and the SCMP exam offered by the Global Communication Certification Council, you better be ready to answer some questions that are all about ethics. So read the ethics guide, listen to the kind and wise words from Jennifer. Another person who's been on the ethics committee was Jane Mitchell, and she was named an IABC Fellow in 2021. She's based in the UK. She's worked with top 100 companies around the world. She's a regular conference speaker and a writer, and she says, think about how you do what you do as much as what you do. You need to focus on values such as humility, openness, and caring. None of us has all the answers. Value the collective wisdom of others and mean it when you say, I hear you. Listen to what is said to you, but listen even more closely for what is not said by becoming expert in seeing contextual dots that others caught in the crossfire invariably do not see, and which will be influencing the way they think and behave.
Bish Mukherjee, ABC, has been in the profession for more than 40 years and started 7 international chapters in Thailand, New Zealand, India, and Australia during his tenure as the Asia Pacific Director. He was the president of IABC India chapter and spent time on the IABC Executive Board. Bish has spoken and or chaired conferences around the world, and his writings have been published in numerous countries. He's author of Risky Success. Bish was conferred the Lifetime Achievement Award and Hall of Fame recognition from the Public Relations Council of India and was named as Fellow in 2016.
And like so many others, Bish says that IABC has been there for him throughout his career. He underscores the importance of both ethics and research.
An organization called IABC has been there for me all the time. And I look at it for help, I look at it for knowledge sharing, I look at it for everything in my career that I have done today. I am thankful to IABC that it has given me an opportunity to grow and come to a level that I am today. And people know me, people know my work, and is the emphasis that IABC places on ethics. Ethics is a core factor which we often forget. And the other thing that we forget is measurement. Measurement of communication is something that hasn't taken off in the developing countries as much as it has in the Western countries. So that is one area where we should be focusing more and more. Anyway, IABC is a great organization. If you are a member of it, you gain a lot. And if you are not a member of it, it is high time you joined it. Thank you.
Before we continue, Brad, I want to point out that we do have a comment, and this is from Bill Spaniel, going back to Tamara Gillis's remarks, saying he agrees with her, especially nowadays with artificial intelligence.
And lifelong learning is something that I know both of us sort of subscribe to, and sort of like can't get enough of it. It's you really want to stay on top of your game. But the other piece
as long as we have Bill there, I do want to point out that if you are watching live, and I can see that there are a number of you who are, please feel free to contribute a comment, an observation, a thought, a reaction to what you've heard, and we will share that as well.
Well, a number of our fellows have been working globally and have experienced the complexity that comes with the context of a globally hyper-connected and polarized world, as well as sort of that advent of social media and all that it throws at them. These developments have brought on a heightened sense of risk, which many organizations of any size really have to address. And Caroline Sapriel knows this firsthand. She's the founder and managing partner of CS&A International, which is a specialist risk, crisis, and business continuity management firm with multinational clients across multiple industry sectors globally. Caroline has more than 30 years experience in risk and crisis management, co-author of 2 books on crisis management, and contributed a chapter on crisis management in that IABC Handbook of Organizational Communication. She was named a fellow in 2021. She has served on IABC's Global Ethics Committee as well.
Carolyn says, from nice to have, crisis resilience has become must-have for public and private enterprises. From product contamination to industrial accidents, social media cancellation crises, executive misbehavior, cyber attacks, and geopolitics, to name a few, our risk maps are growing and becoming more and more challenging to manage. Therefore, communication professionals, the traditional gatekeepers of crises, can no longer fend off sudden or smoldering adverse events without a well-oiled cross-function crisis resilience capability that tackles crisis anticipation, prevention, mitigation, and recovery. Many crisis failures stem from poor crisis leadership, or plainly said, not doing the right thing to protect impacted stakeholders and preserve their trust, so vital to reputation, rather than profits. Leaders must accept that managing crisis is not like a bad week at the office, and that they must develop their crisis leadership competencies and follow a strong code of ethics to not only survive crises, but emerge stronger from them. Brad, we're hearing from all of our fellow colleagues, and here are you and me, and we haven't heard from each other. So it might be time for you to share. You've had broad experience in a number of industries. I remember the first time we met, I think it was in 1980 or 81, when Dave Orman flew the ARCO internal communications staff up to Hewlett-Packard in Palo Alto so that we could have a joint meeting and learn from each other. So we've known each other 44 years. What's your top advice?
It was actually something that was told to me by an exec vice president at HP many, many years ago, when I was getting a chance to do what Caroline was talking about, which was work on a global basis. I covered sort of Asia Pacific, Latin America, Canada, and to a lesser degree, Europe. And his counsel to me was suspend value judgments. We're all used to certain biases. We come in with certain experiences, and often limited. But he said, when you're traveling globally, nothing is better than or worse than, it's just different from. And that was great, both on the, what are we having for breakfast? Oh my gosh, kind of thing, to also the communications challenges and sort of processes that people went through. I just learned so much. It's sort of like at its base, there are a lot of commonalities, but sometimes that implementation, the practice in a certain environment, because of the culture, because of the language, because of the business practices, is a sort of spin on what it is that I had grown up with and I had been schooled in. So to be able to learn, to share, to find the common ground was important, and not to assume that the way I learned and the way it was practiced in this part of the world is the best way or the only way. So suspend value judgments is probably the counsel that I would offer. But this whole worldwide aspect to communications is something that I think IABC is far ahead of many other organizations in providing. And we've seen contributions of professionals around the world. And one of the things that ties us together is research. And research is at the heart of strategic communication planning. And Angela Sinicus, ABC CEO of Sinicus Communications, is an international expert and just the thought leader in the area. If you haven't heard her speak, do so whenever you get a chance. She's been measuring the effectiveness of communication since 1981, and her speaking engagements have taken her to 32 different countries. She's a thought leader in business communication measurement. She's the author of the manual on how to measure the communications program, and has been a regular columnist for Strategic Communication Management magazine, and she's been on these circles many a time. Angela's work has been recognized with more than 20 Gold Quill Awards from IABC, and she became a fellow in 2008. So let's listen to Angela and hear what she says about behaviors, the importance of research, support for leadership, and our ever-changing roles.
So a couple of pieces of advice, most of which come from my own personal experience. One is that when you're going to be working on a really important communication campaign, you've got to start with behavior, what you're trying to change for very specific stakeholders, because otherwise you're never going to really be able to know if you made a difference, or you'll never be able to calculate return on investment. If you focus on behavior, every behavior has a financial value to it. And once you've figured out the right behaviors with your leadership team, then you need to do some research with employees or your customers or whoever your audience is to find out what is leading them to do their current behavior in terms of knowledge and attitudes, and then to ask them what it would take in terms of new information and new attitudes that would change their behavior. This then gives you some evidence that you can use with leadership in saying, this is why this is the right strategy. I've done my research. This is what's going to make a difference. Another piece of advice is get into operational communications. This is not part of your mandate, but if there are business problems going on in your organization where you think communication is part of the problem, dive into it. Figure out the flow of the process from one department to another, where the breakdowns are. Because if you can help fix those, you're going to be fixing financially important problems to your organization and pretty much securing your job security. And the third final piece of advice is more on managing your career. And I think we need to take advantage of that time when somebody wants to hire you, negotiate hard for what you really need.
Before we continue, we have another comment. This is from Mirko Petrochevich. Thanks, Brad. Based on the remarks that you just made, that echoes and supports Jane Mitchell's counsel about humility.
I've said oftentimes that humility and a little bit of, vulnerability on behalf of a leader, communications people, whatever, builds credibility. So these sort of human factors work right into what it is that we're dealing with, which is communications and making that connection that we need to with our audiences.
Building what Angela says, Russell Grossman, ABC, understands the importance of leadership. He has a long list of credentials and accomplishments. Russell has been a UK senior civil servant based in London, England, since 2006. He currently serves as Director of Communications at UK Rail Regulator, the Office of Rail and Road, and head of the Government Communication Service and Internal Communication Profession.
Russell speaks worldwide on internal communications. He's a non-exec director at the Engage for Success movement, working to advance employee engagement. He's been a member of IABC for 20 years, active in volunteer roles, including IABC chair, and on several international committees, along with the one that established that Global Communication Certification Council that I've mentioned. He was named an IABC Fellow in 2023. And for us today, he's providing his perspective on leadership, change, and teams.
In 40 years in the communications profession, there's a few things that I've come across which I haven't actually seen in a textbook. One of those is the concept of good grace. Good grace is what I define as a quality that many leaders automatically have if they're good leaders. Typically, in my experience, leaders become leaders either because they've managed to stab everybody else in the back, climb over the rest of the cohort, manage to get to the top, or alternatively, they are good communicators, genuinely are interested in people and in making their organizations successful. So if that is the case, it follows that there must be leaders that we can learn communications from. And I call that concept good grace. And I've had the privilege of working with many leaders in my time who have demonstrated that quality that I have then learned from. And I've been very grateful for it as a result. Another thing that I've learned in my 40 years or so in communications is that change very rarely happens in practice, and where it does happen, it almost never happens the way the theory would have it happen. That's partly because change is effected through people, and people themselves don't necessarily run the way the theory says they should, because we're all individuals. People resist change, people take change in a different direction. People who do want to change then do change, but not quite in the way that you thought. And so learning from this is really important. And I'm always struck by the fact that people who are change practitioners often begin with a clean sheet of paper, not necessarily thinking of how didn't it work last time? What can I learn from that? Who are the advocates? Who are the badvocates in my organization? How do I deal with them in a way that really will effect successful, lasting change? And then my final thought is about leading teams. I've had the privilege for quite some time of leading many teams, many different teams, comprising different types of individual, people from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of experiences, different skill sets, etc. The most important thing I learned quite early on is that you're no better than the team that you lead. And so the way in which you develop your team, the way in which you allow them the relevant space to make mistakes, but equally make sure that when they do make a mistake, they not just learn from that mistake, but also that if necessary, you carry the can for them. These are all important things that allow people in your team to grow, to support you, and of course to support the organization. And to make sure that those people have not just opportunities to learn, but actually take those opportunities, and that sometimes you need to twist their arm to make sure that that does happen as well.
Leticia Narvaez, ABC, is going to underscore the pivotal role business communicators play in aligning leaders to the company culture. Letty is a strategic communicator with a consulting firm in Mexico City. Her main expertise is within employee communication and engagement, reputation and change management, presentation skills, executive coaching, and DEI. She's been an IABC member for the last 40 years, named a fellow in 2006, and said it's been one of the best professional and personal experiences. In her words, we need to act as facilitators, bridging the gap between top-level executives and employees. By developing effective communication strategies, business communicators can ensure that leaders not only understand, but also embody the organization's values, mission, and vision. When leaders align with the company culture, it promotes a sense of unity, shared values, and a clear direction. And she adds, this alignment serves as foundation for employees, encouraging engagement, commitment, and productivity. As business communicators, it's crucial to facilitate this alignment to create a cohesive and purpose-driven organization. You know, a number of our fellows have been very active in the IABC Gold Quill Awards program, locally, regionally, or internationally. Ritzi Baracara Romquillo, APR, named a fellow in 2020, is one of those key volunteers holding many roles, including chair of the Blue Ribbon Panel for the Philippines and 2021 chair of the International Gold Quill Committee. In her professional role as a lecturer, a trainer, and strategic communication consultant, Ritzi focuses on leadership and public relations.
Ritzi shared an excerpt from her article, When the Leader Stays the Course, that was published in the book PR Matters, that was released last year in the Philippines. She says, leadership is a combination of managing, getting the job done, leading, inspiring and motivating to get the job done, and doing unto others what you would like others to do unto you. From Ritzy's article, after all our years leading teams, the question we can ask ourselves is, what legacy will I leave behind in people's hearts and memories? So that for the moment in their lives, when we come together, when we were together, we can hope to have helped to help them find and become the best they could ever be.
And then Ritzy adds in her work that work will always be there, but it will be the friendships and fond memories that will live on and really matter. And we will meet our team members and other colleagues again outside of work. So yes, staying the course and respecting humanity brings sustainable success for you and for the business. Communication and public relations are built sincerely over time and hopefully built to last. Now let's hear what George McGrath says.
Before we go to George McGrath, we have yet another comment from another fellow. Sherry Rosen says, right, Brad, we have to be able to change what we have done or believed is the correct approach. Times change. It benefits us, communication, and our employers or clients. Russell reinforced that.
And we'll be hearing a little bit more from Sherry a little bit later on during this program. Right now, let's shift gears and hear from George McGrath, who is a fellow of the class of 2014, who credits IABC for helping him build the skills, expertise, and knowledge needed to advise senior management and help clients build winning reputations and strong relationships with people and communities they serve. George is based in New York. He began as a writer for employee publications and advanced to agency executive roles in global PR and marketing firms, culminating in 10 years at the head of his own consulting firm. George is a past IABC chair and a board member, as well as past president of the New York IABC chapter. He contributed to several editions of the IABC Handbook of Organizational Communication, edited by Tamara Gillis, whom you heard from earlier, and spoken on strategic communication topics at colleges, universities, and industry conferences.
George says, I have always found IABCers to be generous in sharing their ideas, insights, and expertise. While IABC professional development channels have evolved to meet today's needs, the focus on delivering quality professional development remains constant. IABC's resources include communication planning models, best practices, and measurement tools that apply to any organization. Most important, IABC's focus on ethics and its humanistic vision of a better world through communication is needed now more than ever. Whether you're a newcomer to the profession looking to build your skills, a mid-level manager who wants to become a strategic advisor to the CEO, or an industry veteran who is ready to give back by teaching and mentoring, IABC is the place for you.
And Shell, it's been the place for both of us, and it was sort of through IABC that we got connected in the first place. You have worked in the corporate setting, you've worked in the agency side of things, you've been a consultant, frontline, backline. What counsel do you have for people who are looking at this communications profession?
Well, I have two pieces of advice. I'm going to share one related to involvement in IABC and the other focused on when you are in your role in your organization. I'll start with IABC, and that is to not just join and be a member and participate in activities and take advantage of the very large library of resources that are available, but get involved as a volunteer. I was an IABC member for several years when I first joined the corporate communications world. And frankly, I joined because I was told by my boss if I worked for him, I was going to be a member. And I asked who would pay the dues, and he said, the company will. And I said, well, in that case, I don't care. And I went to some meetings and I did a few things, but it was when I was asked to fill out a term on the Los Angeles chapter board for a board member who was moving. It would only be a couple of months, and all I had to do was produce a monthly newsletter. I said yes. I started going to board meetings and meeting some incredibly dynamic communicators and spending what I would call quality time with them. I decided to keep that role for a full term the next year. I eventually became chapter president and then a member of the International Executive Board. And that's where the value of IABC really accrued for me, was getting to know these people well and building those connections, because we saw each other frequently, not just once a month or once every couple of months at chapter meetings, not just once a year at the World Conference, but really getting to know each other. And I have to attribute those relationships to at least two of the jobs that I have gotten, in addition to a tremendous amount of knowledge and insight. I have often likened IABC to making the choice between going to a movie and going to Disneyland. When you go to a movie, you sit in your seat, the lights go down, and the movie plays, and you sit and watch. If you spend $150 on a ticket to Disneyland, find a bench and sit down and wait for the Walt Disney Company to entertain you, you're going to be sorely disappointed. You have to be involved. You have to participate. You have to be active. And IABC is Disneyland. It's not a movie. In terms of your role at work, you are going to hear repeatedly from a number of people that you're working towards having a seat at the table. I'm not sure where that table is or why you need a seat at it. Large organizations have somebody like a chief communication officer who may go to board meetings or executive committee meetings, but only one communicator in the organization will ever have a seat at that table. And, one day it might be you, but on the other hand, there are people who go their entire careers without ever participating in the executive board meetings, for example. What you want to do is be the one that the CEO picks up the phone to call before those meetings happen, because there's a challenge they need to address and they have to have a solution to take to the rest of the group. So it's not your goal to have a seat at the table. It is your goal to be the person that the members of the leadership team call and seek out for counsel and advice. And we know from recent research that senior level communicators are now being asked for counsel on things that transcend communication. So that, I think, is what you should be striving for. And we do have a comment on this from Bill Spaniel, who says volunteering gives you the opportunity to practice skills that you might not be able to do in your regular job. And as you know, Shell, you make great connections that help you in your career. And I think he's absolutely right about the skills, because you may have never done any budgeting before. And if you're looking for that experience, being the VP of finance for an IABC chapter can certainly provide you with that kind of experience.
Yeah, I think, Bill, and you have said it well, is you often get the opportunity to do things that you would not normally get to do in the normal course. And the other piece that I've always sort of said is that if you don't do it perfectly, it's not the end of your career. It's a great training ground. It's a sandbox. It's a place to hone skills. I think the other one that is so crucial is that before you have a leadership role and before you start managing a team of people, you have a chance to learn how to delegate, how to follow through, how to find what it is that motivates someone that you're working with. And so take on leadership roles and practice those skill sets before you'll probably get a chance to do them in that work setting. But, everything has been changing. And I think the next speaker really addresses how things have changed.
Bob Burzok, ABC, based in Tucson, Arizona, is another former IABC chair. He began his career in corporate communications. It spanned 30 years, beginning as a publications manager at Uniroyal in 1969 and ending with his retirement from Union Carbide, where he was director of corporate communications. His stint at Union Carbide included crisis communications leadership during the tragic Bhopal chemical leak. He says that while media changed over the years, some things remain constant. In his words, to communicate effectively to any audience, consider the following, regardless of the medium being used. establish credibility using emotional connections, especially if desired behavioral outcome of the audience has been strategically considered. Honesty and truthfulness should always guide the message. Do not fall into the trap that lies and falsehoods, if repeated, will ultimately be accepted. He adds, finally, in any message, never say never or no comment to any media inquiry.
You know, Shell, we talked a little bit about this, about over the years, so very much has changed in the communication profession that we've seen. The technology, certainly, a lot of other aspects to it. It's really interesting to witness these changes through the years from the eyes of a true communications visionary. And I mentioned that we'd be hearing from Sherry Rosen, ABC, been colleagues for decades. She started her career in Texas. Then she worked on the West, Pacific, and Gulf coasts of the United States. She's also worked in Japan for an English language magazine before landing back in San Antonio, Texas. She's an accomplished international speaker. Sherry's presented her insights at various colleges, corporations, and associations. She's been recognized for everything from audience research to crisis management, strategic planning, graphic design, photography. She's authored a book and written hundreds of articles, and IABC people know her writing. Throughout her journey, she's been an IABC member for now almost 50 years. She's led a number of IABC chapters and credits the association with many opportunities for growth, and she was named an IABC Fellow back in 2007.
14 years old, I was the school newspaper editor. I decided then to become a magazine editor. I honed my skills, and right out of college, I became community magazine editor for a hospital group. Thankfully, my boss advised I join IABC to further build my skills. I edited company employee magazines. Then I was executive editor for a major city magazine. These new paths included earning gold quills and attending annual conferences. During one conference, IABC hosted an event at a local museum with an exhibit on creativity. I got the poster and more. I learned how scientists, architects, artists, and other legendary people enhance their creativity by uncovering patterns and then reapplying them. I took note of patterns while learning from my photographer at the City magazine, who also taught computer coding at Radio Shack, a retailer that sold TV antennas, vacuum tubes, and such for electronic nerds, which I was not. Yet I became curious. I started learning how patterns improved coding. I generated full designed publication pages on screen, no paper, using only the keyboard on my primitive computer. I started a monthly technology column for IABC's paper magazine, showcasing how some IABCers were adopting computers. I started my own business designing electronic page clients could print out and photocopy. IABC sponsored regional training so I could demonstrate how it worked. 10 years later, I joined a company with an in-house lab to test technology. I observed private networks merging into an internet and sharing their ideas like graphical user interface called World Wide Web, www.something.com. When I saw it, I envisioned intranet, if not that term, at least the concept. Tech exploded and IABCers rallied. Introducing email was a major change management project. We shared audio and video to people's desktops and podcasts. We responded to connect remote teams during a pandemic. And over those years, I also learned patterns for business as I got my master's degree. But more impactful were lessons from IABC members demonstrating impressive communication breakthroughs. Now we navigate patterns like large language models, neural networks, or generative pre-trained transformers, GPT. Without the foundation of my nearly 50 years in IABC, my use of artificial intelligence could lack relevant meaning to the audience. And without thoughtful prompts, I might fail to guide communication to reach organizational goals. By understanding patterns and depending on IABC Fellows and friends, I know how to put messages in context, which leads to useful communication. Gain all you can from IABC for a career that increases the good.
Mary Hills, ABC, and Six Sigma was named a fellow back in 2016, and she saw her career grow with the evolution of strategic communication and the leadership role of a communication professional. She's currently based in Phoenix, Arizona. Among many noteworthy honors, Mary has had the privilege to serve IABC in development of the global standard of communication in 2012, the IABC Career Assessment Tool, and the IABC Proficiency Metric back in 2021. She is a fellow also with the Center for Strategic Communication Excellence. She manages a dual career in corporate marketing and communication, as well as academia. She currently serves as professional scholar residence at Loyola University of Chicago. And Mary shares some thoughts about the changes she's witnessed with more in store.
My perspective is going to be from the broader profession, because I think that if we understand how the profession has evolved in the last 30 to 40 years, it's going to give us some insight and forecasting into where we might see ourselves tomorrow. So when I first came out of undergrad, and the discipline itself, our field, was focused on just individual disciplines. In other words, you might have gone into advertising, you might have gone into journalism. And that from there, it grew into more of what is a multidisciplined. So for myself, I spent time in marketing communication, and that meant that I needed to understand promotion. I needed to understand sales communication. I needed to understand events. I needed to understand PR in addition to marketing. From there, we moved into interdisciplinary. And then the interdisciplinary, in particular, for me, what I moved into was change communication. So all of those things that I knew in the disciplinary phase, and then in the multidisciplinary phase, I used in change communication and had a lot of successful career opportunities there. Now we have moved into what we would call is probably more of a convergence. And that convergence, I think of it for myself in particular, the work that I do in AI, to bring all of that together. But also I'm worried about the impact on the environment. I'm worried about the impact on social well-being and mental health. And so all of those things become, and that's a convergence. We see a lot of this, anybody can do it through the self-assessment on IABC.com. The IABC proficiency metric really uses the same idea of going from disciplinary into convergence to establish what your career path is. So hope that was helpful.
I think Mary makes a good point too, and we've heard a little bit of that before. It's that lifelong learning, it's the change, it's keeping up with things. And I think one of the things we've also mentioned, albeit briefly, is the notion of certification. And following your name and my name, we have this SCMP, Strategic Communication Management Professional. It's the certification offered by the Global Council of Communications Certification. And maybe we could talk a little bit about what that means and why did you get certified, Shell?
Well, basically, a certification for me was a self-assessment. It was not going to help me get a job. I already had one at the time that I took the certification, but it was validating my belief that I had the skills and the knowledge to perform the role of a director of communications in a corporation. I think a lot of us suffer from some imposter syndrome from time to time. Am I really equipped to do this? And passing that exam goes a long way toward tamping down that sense of imposter syndrome and just building the confidence that you do have the knowledge, the background, the experience, and the skills to manage a department and lead communication for an organization. What about you?
sort of in that same vein, I think certification can prove that you have mastered certain things. You're proving to potential employers, and you're proving to yourself that you've done it. But I think the other piece, that's sort of the flip side of that coin, is you're also learning where it is that you haven't nailed it perfectly. There's some questions, and both the CMP and the SCMP exams are 100-item multiple choice exams, and some of them you breeze through. It's like, I've known this for years, and others like, ooh, it could be that, or maybe it's this one. And those are the areas where you go, I probably need to go listen to another Circle of Fellows episode. I need to sign up for that sort of a session when I go to the next World Conference. So it's as much to learn what it is that you don't know as proving what it is that you do know. And somebody who knows about certification is Ginger Homan. Let's call her in. She's an ABC. She's an SCMP. She became an IABC Fellow back in 2023, not that long ago. She's worked with corporations and foundations to bring out the best in their people and their brands, as well as with professional communications people themselves on how to focus on work that matters and help build their influence. She's been recognized with multiple awards for her communication excellence and leadership. She's the former IABC International Chair, a 3-time recipient of the IABC International Chair Award for Leadership, and she is also a strong advocate for certification. So let's hear what she has to say.
Council, and I can't tell you the number of times people tell me they download and listen to the podcast for a way to prep for one of the 2 exams. And I think it's an incredible gift that you've given to all of us. And if you're not familiar with the global standard, I encourage you to go out to the website and look at it. It is what we aspire to. It sets the guidelines, the guardrails, if you will, on where we should focus our learning and development so that we can excel in our careers and in our positions at our workplace. And if you haven't taken the self-career assessment, I encourage you to do that too, because it tells you how you rank, where you fall in comparison to that global standard. And if you're looking for a proof point that you're operating at the global standard level, take a look at certification at the GCCC website. And if you have a staff that you want to show is operating at the global standard, I encourage you to have a look at the self-assessment for each of the people on your team. In fact, this summer, we're actually launching a pilot where someone will come in and help you do the self-assessment, and you'll get back, where the opportunities for growth are for each member of your team and how to get them prepared to set for one of the certification exams. I love the IABC certification for several reasons. It shows our commitment as an organization to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unlike any other test in the world where you might be asked to write essay after essay, this test is multiple choice. You're right, you're wrong. There's no subjective in the grading. There's nobody at the other end whose hidden biases might make a difference in whether or not you pass or fail. It's simple, it's straightforward. And I also love that it requires each of us to maintain certification, to continue on our continuous learning path, to stay curious and relevant by getting our education hours each year. So go take a look at it. It's a great way to stay sharp and a great reason to keep listening to the podcast. So thank you for providing this to us.
And staying on that theme of certification, we do have a comment from Mirko who says the CMP certification helps keep me current. Professional development is required to renew and maintain certification. Highly recommend it. And Brad, we talked about our SCMP, which is the Strategic Communication Management Professional. The first of the certification programs introduced was the CMP, the Communication Management Professional. And Mirko is right. Every year you have to recertify. There are requirements that you have to meet in order to maintain that certification.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that is we'll see the proof is in the pudding. The program is relatively new compared to the length of the industry, the age of the industry. But one of the things that we see in certification in many other industries is that it usually leads to more job offers. If you're out there looking in the marketplace, it can help differentiate you from the competition. it does often find, I mean, it's probably more correlation than cause and effect, but people who are certified earn more money in jobs than people who are not certified. So there are a lot of benefits that can be sort of attributed to going through the process of certification beyond what we talked about, which was that self-assessment and then moving forward with that. But lifelong learning, and it's a theme that keeps showing up in all of these messages that we've heard from our fellow fellows.
And an important part of lifelong learning is ensuring that we seek feedback and set personal goals for continuous improvement. Priya Bates, ABC, SCMP, and fellow from Toronto, Canada, shared some of her thoughts in Circle 100 last month. She's a senior communication executive who provides strategic internal communication counsel to help leaders and organizations understand strategy, act in accordance with the vision and values, and contribute to business results.
Of communication and why it's so important to invest in. And we do that by closing the loop, telling our leaders what we've done and how we had an impact on those end results. We do that through third-party recognition, and that's where IABC plays such an important role. When IABC has its Gold Quill Awards, we see the best practices from around the world, and we also have that opportunity to compare ourselves to best practices in our, local areas and in our countries as well, and our regions. So take advantage of getting that third-party feedback and recognition, both as part of your continuous improvement process, but also as part of getting the kudos and the recognition to give you those bragging points to say we were recognized globally or nationally or regionally for the work that we do, and we are best in class. Don't be afraid to put your work and your skills to a global test, because you'll feel really good about being part of this global community that makes such a big difference for the organizations, the communities, and the profession that we support.
We're going to hear next from Diane Gajewski, who underscores the importance of communication professionals contributing to an organization's corporate culture. Diane has her feet firmly planted in both industry and education, and her work over the past 48 years has been focused on trying to bridge the communication gap that exists between the two often. She has been a professor of strategic communication at Ithaca College's Roy H. Parks School of Communication since 1979 and served as their dean for a decade. She began working in the emerging technology of interactive media in 1980, and through speaking at conferences like IABC, publishing books and articles, the world literally beat a path to her door in centrally isolated upstate New York, as she describes it. Diane's been involved in IABC for more than 40 years, serving on the Research Foundation board and speaking at dozens of international and regional conferences. She was named a fellow in 2020, and she has some questions and challenges for us as we continue to establish ourselves as a true profession.
Diane Gajewski here. Most of you know I have a foot in the door of academia. I've been a professor now for 45 years at Ithaca College in strategic communication. And I also practice what I preach through my firm, Gajewski Analytics. I'm teaching a number of seniors this year, and it's that time of the year when they are starting to look for jobs. And I hear a lot about what they are looking for. So I want to talk for a few minutes about organizational culture and what matters to Gen Z if you want to attract the top talent. So students are very much interested in organizational culture and values. Yes, they want a decent salary because most of them have pretty expensive college loans to pay off. But more than that, they are interested in joining an organization whose values resonate with them and whose leaders communicate clear values. They want to see what the company does to walk the talk, where they donate, how they use their energies, how they make their decisions about not only employees, but vendors and other partnerships. They want to hear from their leaders and see that they're visible. They're very interested in a work-life balance. They want to have a healthy life. They are not afraid to work hard. Some people say they're slackers and snowflakes. I don't find that. They're willing to work hard, but they don't want to sacrifice unnecessarily. So they're looking for flexibility. They're looking for reasons, for example, if they're expected to come into the office, for some good rationale for that, rather than it just to be sort of a top-down method of control. They're very much looking for belonging and respect for themselves, respect for everyone in the organization. And they want to know that their ideas and energies really count. They want to see that they can make a difference and that people are paying attention to them. So organizational culture is slippery. It's hard to define. Some people say it's just how we do things around here. But I think in our work, one of the most valuable things we can do to be able to attract and retain a great workforce is to be able to define and nurture a great company culture.
The world of communications is changing rapidly. This is a theme that has emerged through both episode 100 and what we've heard today. And artificial intelligence is now part of our world. Adrian Cropley, SCMP, was named IABC Fellow in 2020. He's a global communication strategist and executive coach, CEO of Cropley Communication, and founding director of the Centre for Strategic Communication Excellence in Melbourne, Australia. He is a past chair of IABC, spearheaded the association's first multi-year strategy, and launched the Career Roadmap Committee. This initiative drove the work towards IABC's global standard and career roadmap, as well as the direction of the Global Certification Communication Certification Committee and the 2 levels of certification that are available to us today.
And Adrian is a multiple Gold Quill Award winner. In fact, his organization was named the Boutique Agency of the Year for 6 years running. Other honors include the Medal to the Order of Australia, one of the highest civil awards of Australia. And trust Adrian to just try something a little bit different for his message. He had AI create the content and some graphics related to the future for communication in our rapidly changing world. And he narrated what ChatGPT and DALL-E provided. And while he said it was a little bit scary to do this experiment, he agrees with most of the thoughts developed by ChatGPT. He reminds us of the importance of humanizing messages and helping organizations navigate responsible use of AI. Let's see what AI and Adrian came up with to present.
In this rapidly evolving world, the role of communication professionals is more exciting and vital than ever before, particularly with the advent of AI. Let's explore what makes the future so thrilling for us in communication. Firstly, the future promises unprecedented connectivity. With the advent of 5G and emerging technologies, communication professionals will have access to faster, more reliable communication channels, enabling seamless and real-time connections across the globe. Virtual and augmented reality are set to revolutionize communication. Imagine transporting your audience to different places, even worlds, with just a headset. Communication professionals will have the power to create immersive experiences, to engage, inform, and inspire like never before. The future also brings remote work and collaboration to new heights. As communication tools evolve, professionals can work together seamlessly worldwide. This flexibility will open up opportunities for diverse talents and global perspectives. Data analytics and AI-driven insights will play a significant role in shaping communication strategies. Professionals will have access to a wealth of information, helping them to craft targeted, data-driven campaigns that truly resonate with their audiences. Inclusivity and diversity are becoming paramount. Communication professionals will be responsible for fostering open, inclusive conversations that amplify diverse voices and bridge cultural divides, creating a more connected world. Lastly, the future promises the uptake of groundbreaking innovations like holographic technology. Leaders and organizations can connect with people in ways previously unimaginable, making messages more impactful and memorable. So, as we look ahead, The future for communication professionals is nothing short of exhilarating. Well, that's according to ChatGPT. And the script and images created by DALL-E that I gave you today may have hit the mark. But we need to remember, as communication professionals, we need to continually humanize our messages and also navigate and advise our organizations to the responsible use of AI. But I am sure that 2024 is going to be a thrilling ride for the profession and for you as communication professionals. Thank you.
And while the future is changing rapidly, as Adrian says, we're going to conclude hearing from our fellows with some timeless advice from our final fellow, John Clemens, ABC, SCMP, an award-winning independent communications consultant based in North Carolina. He's held senior executive consultant roles over the course of his career in corporate and organizational communications. He has special expertise in providing strategic counsel and support for top execs and corporate offices of Fortune 500 companies. He served as interim executive director of IABC and chair of IABC. He's also an adjunct professor of PR and communications at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and at Loyola University in New Orleans. And John underscores the importance of, whenever possible, joining an organization that aligns with your values. With his wide range of experience, he also provides value-added advice. He says, it's critically important to ensure that you feel that you fit in your work environment. If so, you will do great work, remain focused, strategic, and innovative, and receive the recognition that you deserve. This professional alignment represents success. So thank you, John, for those closing words.
This has been terrific. But next month, we will return to our traditional Circle of Fellows formats. That episode 102 is scheduled for Thursday, March 21st. We will be sharing the theme and the participating fellows on the panel soon. But this has really been great, Brad, and I've enjoyed presenting the views of all of these fellows with you.
Yeah, it's been fun to be your backup host when you've been on vacation and otherwise involved with meetings and company things. So it's fun to be able to pair up and to hear these views from around the world from people that we have known for decades, whose advice and counsel, it's like, I wish I had been able to hear what these people would have told the younger Brad years ago. And if you're just now joining and listening to this stuff, take heed, listen to this sage counsel, because it will help you in your profession, no matter where you are on that career path.
I do want to thank Anna Willey. We try to remember to thank Anna each month. She is essentially our executive producer. For the regular panels, she's the one who identifies the topic and recruits the fellows to participate, determines if we need to schedule a different time to accommodate people from the Philippines or Australia or the UK or what have you. And in this particular dual episode, episodes 100 and 101, she went way above and beyond. She handled editing of some videos. She wrote scripts. She created the slides for those fellows who contributed narrative rather than video. She has been in touch with both of us frequently as this was developed. The work was exceptional, above and beyond, and these episodes would not have happened without her.
And I think her normal role that you described of finding 4 or 5 people and getting them in one place at one time, she'll get to relax and go back to that challenge. But the pulling together, 40 some people from all over the globe and getting them to contribute and checking on the facts and editing videos has been above and beyond. And I think the other piece that Anna does so well is she takes the content from these and ties it back to both the CMP and the SCMP exams, in terms of, if you're studying for the exam, here's a great episode to go watch. These 2 episodes, I think, you should watch just because they cover so much territory. They're not singularly focused on a topic, and they're going to be so valuable today and in the future.
We have a couple last comments before we wrap this up from Sherry. Thank you, Shell and Brad, for all the strong advice you weave into this overall discussion, and to Anna for her producer role. Y'all are amazing. Metal, yellow, first, red. From Mirko, thank you, gentlemen, and your fellow fellows for being so generous in sharing your experience and expertise. And Bill Spaniel says, applause, applause. There have been 40 fellows who contributed their insights, their experience, their recommendations, and we're going to close by showing you who all of them were. And with that, until next month, it's been great, everybody. Thanks very much. And thank you, Brad.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Shell.